I've seen hard-working men labour all day to dig holes in some really hard clay, hoist great logs upright using a team of bulls, and hammer those massive poles in place with those same cattle, a few pulleys, a lot of wet rope, sweat, patience and determination, plus a really hefty boulder. I've also stood in frightened awe as a hulking monster came tearing out of the nearby forest, charging right at one of those poles and swiped at it so hard with its heavy, clawed hand the pole just exploded in the middle and sheared right off its base with a sound like a bolt of lightning grounding right next to my skull. To say that a grey render is formidably strong is quite an understatement. They are aptly named, believe me. So, having survived that encounter by essentially crawling under a pile of pulverized wood chips and playing mushroom for a while, I naturally became very interested in what in the nine hells a grey render is and how best to avoid them. Because I just find it very difficult to reason with a thing as stupid as an ogre, and with those 6 yellow eyes, I just don't know what I am dealing with. Surely this thing had to be some sort of a mage-bred monster, used in wars long since over, and now wandering the wildlands, its original methods of control now simply weird behavioural quirks that express themselves in often bizarre and always dangerous ways. Appeals to the local lord by the homesteaders who roused the hulk to such violence so suddenly fell on fairly deaf ears. It was tournament season, and his lordship was off on a seasonal tour of the competition circuit, earning dubious valour, while the people who built the new fields and found new mineral deposits to feed the lord's taxes were quite likely to get slaughtered without some serious armoured might to defend them. Such is the eternal plight of the extraordinary humans who, despite all the dangers, just feel some innate drive to bring the wilderness to heel and dominate their environment, no matter the cost in lives. Without brawn, what could I do but provide the one thing I seem blessed with? A bit of brain. So I took a few nights to get to know the local woodsmen and foresters, and sure enough, one of them just happened to know a lot more about this particular grey render, and also had a very good idea why the new lumber mill construction had driven it into such a demolition frenzy. We trampled its flowers, or rather, it thought we killed all the spring flowers in the forest, which made this one particular elven girl sad. You have no idea how nervous I was then, in a rather aloof elven village, presenting a garland of fresh flowers like a royal crown to the little elven princess, while a monster with the power of a fair-sized adult dragon just sat next to her and watched. I was as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, my every motion and sound calm and reassuring, while my eyes skittered back and forth between the little girl and her pet monster. Close up, they are no less mysterious, but I found myself in a unique position to study the creature and compare it to what I knew of the world. And certainly the grey render is not from Toril, nor is it some strange mage-bred mutation of any creature of the natural world. Even with a somewhat hunched and ape-like posture, the creature stands over 9 feet tall and easily 4 feet across its massive shoulders. Extremely dense musculature, thick bones and grey hide like that of an elephant, except kind of like how mammal skin can shift a little with goosebumps and the like, render skin can often soften and harden suddenly to absorb damage. So you might be able to get some warning the thing is about to go on a rampage by the tightening of its hide over its rippling muscles. All this seems to fit a creature from a very large world, with a strong gravity, dense atmosphere, and tremendous storms that pelt the landscape with dangerous debris. Renders have a bullet-shaped head with 6 relatively small yellow eyes. Again, that redundancy of those vital organs on the head speaks of the violence they are built to withstand wherever they originally came from. They have no other facial features aside from an anvil of a jaw with a double row of teeth that rival a carnivorous thunderbeast, quite capable of biting right through the backbone of a fully grown bull moose. They're actually marsupials, asexual marsupials technically, with a very strange reproductive system. Nodules form in their flesh, being nourished in a temporary pouch that looks like a fleshy bud growing from their hide, which, when mature enough for independence, then breaks off from the parent, who gives it no additional thought and moves on, leaving its offspring to fend for itself. And from what I've been told, on some worlds they only produce a single offspring during their life. But it seems the richer food sources are, the more offspring they create, which means that wherever they originally came from, their environment could not support any more than a small, limited population of these super predators. And perhaps they were so few and widely dispersed, needing a partner to breed was simply not practical. Or such cataclysmic devastation occurred on that planet from meteors and such that at times only a scant few creatures remained and had to regenerate their population by any means they could. Of course, this also made the things absolutely ideal for errant wizards to collect and transport to some other environment because you only need one of them. And of course, Toril has a very rich and abundant ecosystem full of microclimates and unique ecologies, so the grey renders have thrived on their planet and can now be found everywhere that swampy forests support plenty of game animals. We should be thankful Toril is also full of other super predators which seem to keep the renders' population in check. Swampy forests, you see, are some of the richest sources of game on the whole planet, and due to the huge appetite of the renders, they naturally find a more suitable hunting ground in these places where they can find them. But I don't doubt that for a second that you could find these creatures just about anywhere, because surely the planet they came from was a far more austere place where their survival teetered on a knife edge constantly. While I say the eyes are redundant, they're not just three pairs of the same set, as each pair of eyes perceives light in a slightly different spectrum. It's clearly obvious when you're looking into the retina. On Toril, this gives them no particular advantage other than 60-foot night vision as far as we know. Perhaps they can detect ultraviolet or even underdark phase res energy. I've seen no confirmation of that, nor do they have any ability to detect invisible creatures or to peer into the broader ethereal plane. Further study is no doubt required on the subject of their vision. Perhaps they could see the light of 3 different suns in the sky of their homeworld. They have a sense of smell, but their olfactory organ associated with extends along the mouth, the upper palate, the tongue, and right down the throat, affording a wide area to collect chemical traces by air or taste. These are brutes though, not very mentally capable at all, and they have an intelligence of only 3, so they just don't understand any sort of tactics other than to charge directly at their victims and tear them apart as ferociously as possible, best they can manage as an ambush. One thing I noticed is absent in 5th edition stat blocks for the render is that they normally inflict double damage to inanimate objects and structures, qualifying them as living siege weapons. Also, they are listed with a strength of 19, which is formidable, but they traditionally have the same sort of supernatural strength as a giant, effectively lifting and carrying weights as though they were a size category huge rather than a size category large, as they are. What they do have is a natural armor class of 19, 18 d10 plus 90 or between 108 and 270 with an average of 189 hit points, plus 8 to strength saving throws, plus 9 to constitution saving throws, 2 claw and 1 bite attack each round, and a special ability called Bloody Rampage, which states that when the Grey Render takes damage, it makes 1 attack with its claws against a random creature within its reach other than its master. And with that word, here is where the render goes from otherworldly brute to a much more quirky and interesting beast. A curious impulse drives the Grey Render, despite its hulking form and terrible appetite. It wants most of all to bond with an intelligent creature and, once bonded, give its life to protect that creature. Nobody knows exactly why they do this. It's generally thought that at some point in their past, the ancestor of all the contemporary Grey Renders was somehow tamed a little so that it felt a compulsion, a deep drive to make a bond with some other intelligent creature. And that would be the mage who summoned them from whatever location they came from, as an insurance policy against the Render just turning their immense fury on them as soon as they stepped out of whatever magical entrapment they were summoned into. Thankfully, Grey Renders always appear as solitary predators. They just don't tolerate any other adult Renders hunting in the same area they are, because they can't withstand it. However, they don't seem to mind other predators and scavengers following along after them, cleaning up the remains of any prey the Renders don't swallow whole, as the Renders are invariably very messy eaters who tend to scatter severed limbs and organs all around themselves as they feed. They tear their prey apart and swallow chunks. They don't bother with anything more fussy than that. The strength of their bite, just to give you some idea of how powerful they are, is capable of ripping a 3-foot diameter tree out of the ground, and their heavy black claws can shred that tree trunk in just a few moments. They are plus 8 to hit with a bite and claw attack. The bite inflicts 2d12 plus 4 piercing damage, and if the target is medium size or smaller, the target must succeed on a DC 16 strength saving throw or be knocked prone. For the claw, They have 2 claw attacks each round, and each inflicts 2d8 plus 4 slashing damage to any creature within 10 feet reach of where it stands. If the target also happens to be prone, it inflicts an additional 2d6 bludgeoning damage for that synergy between its bite and claw attacks. They're not very fast, considering that they weigh over 4,000 pounds, but with a speed of 30 feet per round, it's not too bad. Outside of Toril, the spelljamming alien race known as the Neogi tend to have grey renders accompany them, much like they are accompanied by Umberhulks. If they know of the grey render's home sphere, the original one, they're not divulging that secret, and knowing the Neogi would have plundered the place barren by now anyway, as long as the Clockwork Horrors or some other cosmic threat hasn't done so already. It doesn't matter about their homeworld much though, the grey renders exist perfectly fine without it on countless different crystal spheres, roaming the elemental planes and other places. They are very hardy and adapt pretty well. You can encounter grey renders almost anywhere, but be warned, they may almost instantly want to form a bond between them and another intelligent creature, such as humans, perhaps even your player character. If it encounters a suitable master, the render sings to it, a weird, warbling cry accompanied by scratching at the earth and a show of deference. Once it forms the bond, the render serves its master in all things, with as much of its limited intelligence as it allows. So there you go, not an overly complicated beastie, but that relationship that it has with whoever it's bonded with really forms the meat and potatoes of what makes this such an interesting creature to introduce into your campaign. Perhaps that little elven girl has the best of intentions, but some strange and fanciful ideas, now backed up by a bully the size and capacity of a walking tank. Fun, fun, fun. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'll be back with more for you very soon.